micro sports cars and ndash and nbsp, Honda and Daihatsu cars driven. When the American style of christening storms came to Britain a couple of years ago, it was inevitable that some wag in the Met Office would find a way to undermine the whole concept with an underwhelming name to snigger about. Storm Brian was the result. It's a fine English name but perhaps lacking the gravitas of many of those coined overseas. In terms of impact, we've had spray overtopping quaysides. Someone from the Environment Agency told the BBC of Brian's pummelling of Cornwall. Top marks for not trying, Brian. While Brian was doing his thing on the other side of the world, Typhoon Lan, now there's a name, was homing in on southern Japan, bringing with it 140 miles per hour winds and a storm that made photographer Stan Papior wish he'd invested in a waterproof camera and jacket. Look really closely at some of his pictures over the following pages and you still won't see Mount Fuji, the enormous, awe-inspiring backdrop we'd planned to use to celebrate one of Japan's most wondrous automotive creations, the sports car. Where's Brian when you need him? There are only two sports cars in production right now, the Honda S660 and the Daihatsu Copen, and we have an example of each with us. Like all cars, they are built to strictly controlled dimensions, so no longer than 3,400 mm and no wider than 1,480 mm. No car can have an engine bigger than 660 cc, nor one more powerful than 63 bhp. Most end up at those extremes. Anything smaller would surely be blown away by Lan, and even Brian might have something to say. In truth, the only extreme thing about these cars is just how small they are. As we set out from Tokyo in them, a Jaguar F-Type coupe pulls alongside us at the first set of traffic lights. Oh, how cute, the driver of the enormous Jag, which looks about 4 times the size of the S660, must be thinking to himself. And who can blame him? Both of these things are so sweet and endearing, you'll forgive them almost anything. But more on that later. We're in Tokyo, to embark on a whistle-stop cultural tour of Japan from its capital city to as high up Mount Fuji as the road will allow. The reason? To see whether or not, in a post-Brexit world, the UK's trade negotiations with Japan should include a line or two about getting these cars back over here. After all, Japan is one of the world's few other right-hand drive markets. The S660 is Honda's third attempt at getting its sports car mojo back, after the Civic Type R and the NSX. The two-seater is more like the latter than the former in that it is mid-engined and rear-wheel drive, its 660CX engine at the 63 bhp limit. The turbo helps push torque to 77 pounds-foot, and it gets a 6-speed manual gearbox. So it's pleasingly old-school in its approach to the sports car. Something that extends to the soft top roof that's removed by hand and stored in the car's only storage space in the front. The space is measured by weight, 10 kilograms, rather than capacity, such is its diminutiveness. After this, your luggage can extend to no more than a bottle to fill the cup holder. By comparison, the Daihatsu takes a more grand tour approach, with its folding hardtop roof still leaving plenty of room for a bag or two, roof up or down. Even with all the extra weight of the roof mechanism, the Copen surprisingly comes in at the same claimed 850 kg curb weight as the S660, the two cars also both using McPherson strut front and torsion beam rear suspension. This is the second-generation Copen. The first, which no one could tell one end from the other, was exported to countries including Britain with a larger, more powerful 1.3-liter engine. This time, it's a 658cc 63 bhp engine, mounted up front and driving the front wheels, and only on sale in Japan. The Daihatsu is available in several different flavors, our test car being its Play version, which aims to bring the crossover together with the sports car for the first time since the Porsche 911 Safari rally cars, as someone in Daihatsu's marketing department probably decided. There is no getting away from the fact that it's quite weird looking. But at least it's weird looking from all angles. There's a theme that's been stuck to, but, by the end of our 2 days with the little car, I actually come round to quite liking it. In this spec the S660 comes in at 2.2 million yen, about £14,500, but it can be had with fewer toys for around 1.9 million yen, £12,500, which is what our Copen will cost. The starting prices of these cars are rather at odds with cars' sole purpose of being cheap to tax, insure and run, especially when you consider that most well-spec'd superminis in Japan can be bought for much less. That said, you have to go up to 2.5 million yen, £16,500, for a Mazda MX-5, a bargain price at list but with none of the other car cost benefits. So sports cars have their place, indeed. 10,298 S660s found homes in Japan last year, far more than Honda needs for it to be profitable, compared with 5,152 Copens. It's the Copen I try first. It's easy to get in and out of, at least, which technically is a good first impression. A better one than how woolly the clutch feels, how the steering doesn't feel like it does anything for the first quarter of a turn, how third gear in the gate seems impossible to find, and how the chassis has the sophistication over bumps in the road akin to a McDonald's when it had the word restaurant above its front doors. Still, the Copen provides a nice view of that Honda in front. It looks like a shrunken McLaren, something that Honda embraces right down to the little rear window that opens like on a 650S Spider, allowing the cabin to be flooded with the sound of 3 cylinders and 63 horses. Perhaps I'm asking too much of the Copen. It does have some nice bits. I like that the steering wheel is big, that its tires are nice and skinny like a motorcycle's, and that its controls are at least light enough to make progress through Tokyo traffic fairly easily. I can also make more sense of the sat-nav in Japanese than some systems I've come across in English. Recent efforts from Peugeot and Alfa Romeo spring to mind. In Tokyo, we make 2 stops. First, its lowest tunnel, nicknamed Ghost Tunnel by locals and soon to shut. I have to crane my neck to walk into it, a cramped experience that provides a good warm-up for driving the S660 later on. From there, we head to the famous Rainbow Bridge, which looks like the Golden Gate Bridge without the red paint, or the Severn Bridge to Stan's eye. Come to think of it, lots of bridges look the same, something that can't be said of the traffic on Tokyo's roads, which are a paradise for a spotter of weird and wonderful cars you can't get in the UK. Not just the creativity of cars but also Japan's other domestic creations, typically MPVs of all shapes, sizes and right-angle designs. This is one market the SUV has yet to conquer. Perhaps the Copen will be better on the main motorway heading to the town of Fuji, our stop for the night ahead of our trip up the mountain itself tomorrow. Progress isn't quick, not because of the traffic but because of the stops to take in roadside delights such as vending machines in the middle of nowhere and service stations selling everything from camouflaged cakes to kitchen tongs in the shape of cat paws. As this is the weekend, you'll find car clubs meeting in service station car parks, and we spot a Toyota Hi-Ace van fan club coming together in one. When we're actually moving, the Copen does endear itself more at speed. The high-speed ride is better than the low-speed ride, and it's capable enough at keeping up with the pace of the traffic. Cars are nominally limited to 100 km/h, 62 miles per hour,